So, Theresa May has finally said she'll go. But it wasn't willingly or honourably. It was because she had no choice. Finally, she saw what we all knew, that as a leader, she's finished. Let's not pretend she made any great sacrifice in saying she'd step down. She knows the only chance of getting her terrible deal over the line is if she's gone. But it could be too little, too late. Because if the agreement isn't passed, the dream of a new global Britain will be dead. And those arrogant Remainer MPs who've always believed they know better than the British people will have won their dirty battle. And that's Mrs May's fault. Parliament is out of control because she can't control it. She was never up to the job of delivering Brexit, but her vanity, her ego and her intransigence made her cling on to the very end. She says she's resigning to get her deal over the line. I think she's doing it to secure her place in history as the PM who fought for and won Brexit. But that's not how history will remember her. It'll be as the woman who turned one of the greatest countries in the world into an international laughingstock.
Carole, there's no question about it. She has done a very bad job in negotiating Brexit. 90% of the country now thinks that Parliament has handled this very badly, the government's handled it badly, and actually it's a national humiliation where we are today. In fact, this week we've had Sir Anthony Seldon, a great political historian, say this is the worst constitutional crisis in 300 years. So we're in a very difficult position right now. And I think the crux of it is this, that we had a very narrow decision 3 years ago, a very narrow decision. 17.4 million people voted, which we continually told about. People forget that we've only had 3 referenda ever on a nationwide basis in this country. And the first of them in 1975, whether to stay in the European community, do you know what the result was? 17.4 million people voted to remain. But the big difference there was that 17.4 million was 2/3 majority. So it was a conclusive decision. We now have this very narrow decision that has divided our country. And we're now stuck in this position, and you touched on this, 75% of the House of Commons and more than 80% of my members in the House of Lords at the time of the referendum thought the best thing for the country would be to remain. And now we're in this position where they've lost the sense of representative democracy, which has been the heart, the cornerstone of Britain's great democracy that the whole world looks to. And we're caught in this absolute deadlock now. How do we get out of this?
But it's even worse than that, I think, because had we had a leader who was strong, who was actually a good leader. You know, leaders are supposed to be able to inspire people. They're supposed to be able to entice people to follow them. They're supposed to be able to persuade people. This woman has none of those qualities. And, you know, she should have gone, you know, she says now she's resigning for the good of the party and the good of the country. If she cared one jot about this country, she would have resigned a year ago. She should have resigned after she lost that election. She should never have called it. She should have resigned after that. She should have also resigned last year in Chequers when it became really clear that no one was going to support this deal. But she has doggedly ploughed on with this. She hasn't listened to people. Karen, you know, you're closer to it than I am. She hasn't listened to people. She has surrounded herself with Remainers. She has sidelined all the Brexit secretaries who were leavers.
Well, you see, the thing is, you can say what a bad Prime Minister she's been, what a hopeless communicator she's been.
She was a
the fact
politician.
that she doesn't listen, the fact that she's blinkered and stubborn, all these criticisms about her are probably absolutely valid. But the reality is, more than anything, what is driving this is she is trying to keep the Conservative Party together. The Conservative Party is completely broken, as is the Labour Party, to be fair. But so she's trying to keep the party before country. And
what is driving this is we have a bunch of MPs who have refused to accept the result of the referendum.
It's not a question of refusing. The result of the referendum is already 3 years out of date. There are 2.4 million youngsters, 2 of my children, who are 18 years old since that date, who were not allowed to vote, and now they don't have a say in their future.
Okay, it never ends, though, Karen, does it?
No,
that means when can my grandson, who's not even one, you know, let's do it again. I mean, let's move on. How do we move on from where we are now? That's what interests me, because as you rightly say, she will step aside. We've got a belligerent, and I would have thought almost impossible to deal with, DUP who seem to be holding out. We have someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Rightly so, they've got a good argument.
Yeah. But Jacob Rees-Mogg, who was supposedly he was for it, then he was actually trying to get Mrs May out of office.
Hypocrisy.
Then he was going to vote for it. Now he's not going to vote for it. Rachel, can you define the path forward?
I mean, I think it doesn't profit any of us to go back over all Theresa May's mistakes at this point. I think that I need to pick Carole up on one thing, which is I'm not sure it's entirely clear that Theresa May is going to go.
No,
there are some various hard stop staging posts which we face. I mean, there is April the 12th, which is if we don't get a deal, then we go out. There's May the 22nd. If we do get a deal, we go out May 22nd. If Theresa May doesn't get her deal through, she is not held to her own promise to fall on her sword, because that was the bargain she made. The pact with the devil she made with the ERG, with Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg. She bought Jacob Rees-Mogg's loyalty for only 6 hours by that promise to resign, which Margaret Beckett said if she was in the ERG, she'd want to see that written in blood. Theresa May has a history of going back on her word.
Exactly.
She has contradicted herself
all the time.
constantly.
What is crucial is that she is not around for the next stage of negotiation.
I think that is.
Around for that.
I think she can be held to that commitment on phase 2. We have to remember that the withdrawal agreement only covers a very limited portion of our relationship going forward with the EU. You know, Ireland, the citizenship and the money.
Rachel, limited, nothing has been agreed. This withdrawal agreement, everyone says, get the deal done, get over the line. You get over this line, we are now faced with years of uncertainty because nothing's been agreed. The trade relationship, security, space, consumer rights, nothing's been agreed.
Carole,
and business is suffering and will continue to suffer.
Shall I just remind you, because this is farcical, what we've been through just to get to this stage with the withdrawal agreement. So, on the 15th of January, we had Meaningful Vote, Episode 1. I'm calling it the Phantom Hope. This saw the government defeated by a majority of 230 against the Prime Minister's deal. Then on the 12th of March, we had Meaningful Vote, Episode 2, the Return of the Vote. This saw the deal defeated by a slightly less embarrassing 149 votes. And then the Prime Minister promised there would be Meaningful Vote, Episode 3, May Strikes Back, but has since admitted she doesn't have enough support to put that to the Commons. So that instalment has, at the time of recording, been postponed. May the force be with her, I think.
Or farce.
I mean, the farce, or may the May be forced not to be with us. I think, you know, I have to say, Carole, I agreed with most of what you said in terms of just how depressing a situation we find ourselves in. But I do think your diagnosis is unfair. I don't think that there is another person who could have delivered this in a fundamentally more desirable way, because this is not a deliverable. What was promised
it is
not what was. I'm not saying someone could have done a better job. Theresa May's leadership has been catastrophic.
Can we just look at
but it's not because she's a Remainer,
promise?
And it's not because she surrounded herself by Remainers. I think that a lot of this reflects the impossibility of what was promised.
I don't think it's impossible at all. She made lots of promises. Can we just look at some of those promises? This is her Lancaster House speech.
I want this United Kingdom to emerge from this period of change stronger, fairer, more united and more outward-looking than ever before. I want us to be a secure, prosperous, tolerant country, a magnet for international talent and a home to the pioneers and innovators who will shape the world ahead. I want us to be a truly global Britain, the best friend and neighbour to our European partners, but a country that reaches beyond the borders of Europe too.
So that was the promises she made back then. They were unequivocal. Let's just see what she said the other day, and she's admitting defeat.
MPs have been unable to agree on a way to implement the UK's withdrawal. As a result, we will now not leave on time with a deal on the 29th of March. This delay is a matter of great personal regret for me. So far, Parliament has done everything possible to avoid making a choice. Motion after motion and amendment after amendment has been tabled without Parliament ever deciding what it wants. All MPs have been willing to say is what they do not want.
And that's exactly right, and she just summed it up there. It's Parliament. Even this week, these indicative votes, all it indicated was that Parliament still doesn't know what it wants.
But that shows the complexity of the problem.
No, it doesn't. What it means is a group of Remainer MPs will not accept the result of the referendum and are doing everything they can to thwart it. If we had all been united in getting it through, it would have been through.
How can you say that when the hardcore Brexiteers are the ones who have been most staunchly against her previous two withdrawal agreements?
Because they're fighting for Brexit,
to cast this as Remainer Remainers trying to sabotage the process. It is the ERG who have been absolutely opposed, and the DUP.
What, the ERG are trying to sabotage Brexit?
Let's just have a look.
Valid reasons within their ideology.
What do the people actually think about this?
Exactly.
There's a Sky poll we should have a look at just now, and that says, is Theresa May on your side regarding Brexit? And 51% of people say no. Now, just think, that means either people don't want Brexit and she's not on the side, or they want to deliver Brexit and she can't deliver it.
Okay. Look, the country, all of us, all Commons, is understandably utterly fed up to the back teeth of the whole subject. But just to do a bit more justice to Theresa May than you did, I think that, you know, she has struggled to come up with a deal which still is on the table that both honoured the result of the referendum.
And it doesn't.
We will leave the EU. Yeah. That's all you need to know. The fact that the Irish backstop means that we can't be global Britain for an undetermined period of time and that we're tied to be a rule taker is the price you have to pay for getting what you want. Now, as I see it, just in the next couple of weeks, I still think that she is going to drive the Commons to vote for her deal, because I don't think we can have no deal. The Commons has said we can't. It could be legally impossible. But Karen, what does yours see? I think it's her deal or no deal.
So no deal is definitely
off the table. So we're left with her deal.
So we're at deadlock that has to be resolved. Now we're talking about global Britain. I think we can move on to what I want to talk about.